Welcome to the Art of Authority podcast, bringing you interviews and episodes to help you radically optimize your authority and influence to become the go-to expert in your field. Here's your host, authority positioning coach, Mike Saunders.
Hey guys, welcome back. This is Mike Saunders, the authority positioning coach. And today we have with us Mark Schaefer, who is the author of the book Known. Welcome to the program, Mark.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. And the interesting point is I listen to a lot of podcasts and I read a lot of books. And about 2 months ago, when I was planning this summit, I was listening to old episodes from a duct tape marketing podcast. And I heard your episode and it was really excellent. And I was like, ooh, I need to ask Mark to be on the summit. And then I noticed that I had bought your book previously, read through it, had some highlights in there. So it was just perfect to be reminded and to have you come on. So thanks so much. Give us a little bit of an idea before you wrote that book, Known, what was it that made you think this is something relevant and needed to talk about?
Well, really, it was two things. And I'd say the germ of the idea really started about 10 years ago when I started my own company. I was in the corporate world. I was the global director of e-business for a Fortune 100 company and decided to start my own business. I started teaching and consulting, and all the equity I had put into my brand and my influence in the company, it was like, okay, well, what's your title and where are you on the organizational chart and how many things do you have, hanging on your wall, and how big is your audience or your office? How many people are reporting to you? How many, degrees do you have? I even have 7 patents. And when I went into the online world and started to start my business, I realized nobody cared.
Yeah.
Nobody knew and nobody cared. They didn't care what my title was. They didn't care what I did before. Even people that know me today have no idea what I achieved in my, former life. So there's a new equity of influence in our world today. And really it's this, either you're known or you're not. It's really that kind of simple. And so then I began to go into this process to figure out, can anybody become known? And the reason was I was talking to a bunch of people, colleagues and customers and students, and they were all saying, well, I want to write a book someday. How do I do that? I want to start a speaking career. I want to be invited to a board position. I want a new opportunity outside my industry. And I kept saying, well, to do that today, you really need to be known. I mean, you can't write a book without an audience. You can't get a speaking invitation unless people know who you are. And so I started going down this rabbit hole of how do you become known? Is there a process? Is there a path? Do you need some special something? And I did a tremendous amount of research over about 1.5 years before I started writing the book. And so I think, cracked the code. I mean, I think there is a path to becoming known.
And, I know that you will touch on this, but what you just mentioned made me think of, it's like back in when I was in the mortgage banking business a couple decades ago, you heard the saying, well, it takes credit to get credit. Or when you're talking to a college student to get their first job, it takes experience to get experience. So It's kind of like, how do you get that first break? Well, does it take you being known to then get known? Or are there levels of some of these known, expert, authority type levels that you can go, well, you know what? Here's level 1, 2, 3, for instance. To get to level 1, sure, you got to have a little bit of momentum, but you can always start here, here, here. So I think I know the answer, but what would you say to someone that says, well, I can't get known because I'm not known?
Well, I don't think that really holds true. I think that nobody is born an expert. And that's one of the things in the book. I interviewed about 97 people, actually, not about, exactly 97. Yeah. And I featured the stories of about 60 of them in the book. And one of the things that I wanted to get through to people is that many of these people, when they began their journey, had nothing. Some of them were on the brink of disaster. Some of them were almost homeless. And so nobody, even the people that we admire, the people that we look up to, they didn't start that way. And the idea is that you can take people on your journey. It's an evolution. Becoming known is an evolutionary process, not a revolutionary process. And so you have to be humble. You have to have an urgency to learn. You certainly have to work hard, which is something that I do not, in the book, it's a very honest book. If it's something's hard to do, I say, this is hard to do. If something takes time, I say, it takes time. I would love to have written a book, 30 Days to a Powerful Personal Brand. That just doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. And so, based on the interviews, based on the research, I think you have to be consistent, and you have to just be on a learning journey for the rest of your life.
Part of that comes with you as that entrepreneur, business owner, speaker, author, whoever it is thinking, I need to get more known and develop my expertise. At some point, they need to start believing that themselves. So as an example, maybe you need to look back at some recent interactions with your target audience and did you have a really deep conversation with one? And did it really, open up the eyes of that prospect? And they say, wow, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it that way. And you're like, yeah, and here's another piece of, educational, and you're not going to say this, but I mean, you want to educate people to understand what it is that you do for your target audience. And when that happens and you start noticing, well, yeah, I do make some good points and it's not surface level. At what point do you find that people start getting that momentum to build their known status based on their belief internally of what they are expert or knowledgeable in?
Well, I think, like I said, nobody starts out being an expert. But I think you can certainly become known. I think there's something even more important than being an expert. And it's having the consistency to build an emotional connection with somebody. I mean, we are not logical animals. We're not rational animals all the time. Sometimes we make a personal based on who we trust even more than, what people might know, right? So, let's say someone's a PhD, but they're a jerk. They could be an authority in their industry, but it's not somebody I want to do business with. But if we have the courage to really, be human and take people, with us on our journey, our education journey to be known, then I think that means something. I think there's nothing there's no shortcut to building that emotional connection over time. Is that you need to build trust. Yeah, authority, that's part of it. But also it's just an ability to connect with someone on an emotional level, to find some spark to say, I didn't know that about you. That's really amazing. We kind of share this bond, and that can eclipse even talent. That can eclipse genius. Sometimes being consistent and outlasting people is more important than genius.
Yeah.
Or having a big idea.
I think you made a really huge point about trust, because you can have some influence over people, but when you can influence, alongside of people, that shows that when you've developed that trust and they want to listen to you, and, their sales resistance is down per se, because they realize that you're going to explain some things about this business or this opportunity and just see if it might possibly be a fit. So I think that's a really big piece. So let's say that someone goes, you know what, I'm doing it for all the right reasons. I'm ready to start building out my platform and getting the word out. Where's the first place that you recommend someone to start?
Well, in my book, I take people through the 4 stages, and in the digital world today, I found that there really are no exceptions. That everybody follows this path. Some of them kind of stumble onto it. Some of them maybe get there by luck. But and now that people have my book, they can be more mindful and systematic about it. But the first step is you really need to think about what do you want to be known for? How are you going to stand out? What is your voice? What is your story? And we have a lot of hype in the world today about, follow your dream and follow your passion. And sometimes what you want to be known for is your passion, and sometimes not. I mean, I didn't grow up my whole life dreaming that I was going to be a digital marketing consultant. I wanted to be an astronaut. But sometimes you don't follow your passion. Sometimes your passion follows you. Perfectly okay. And it can create a very nice business model. Again, I've got exercises in the book for everyone to kind of go through these 4 stages. The second path is now, once you want to, kind of what you want to be known for, what your story is, where are you going to tell it? And this is a big mistake that people overlook, is that, today the internet is a very, very crowded, noisy, competitive place. So if you can step back and just do a little bit of research to find some way that you can own a platform yourself, you'll give you give yourself the very best chance to succeed. The third step is identifying some kind of content like you're doing today. We're creating content here together. What is the type of content that's going to deliver that message? And this is where people get they get overwhelmed because they see Facebook and Facebook Live and YouTube and blogging and podcasts and, what do I do? And it really is not that complicated. There's basically 4 different kinds of content. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, those are all distribution channels. Mm-hmm. You need to pick one source of content. There's 4 options. You pick one. Say, this is what I'm going to do because I'm going to have fun with this. It's going to bring me joy. It's going to connect with my audience, and I'm not going to quit. I'm going to stick to this for at least, a year and a half, let's say, because it does take time to build that traction and build that audience. And the 4th step is building an actionable audience. So today there's a mythology really that if you have a large social media audience that, all your troubles will be over. And a social media audience is important because it represents opportunity, but it is not an actionable audience. If you have a lot of followers on Twitter, that doesn't mean they're going to buy something from you. It doesn't mean they're going to hire you to do something. You need to, again, build that emotional connection, go the extra step to meet them in some way, to serve them in some way, to help them in some way that gets you on their radar screen and build a trusting engagement with them that'll lead to business benefits. So that's the 4th part. You've got to build an audience that there's got to be enough people out there to make your dreams come true, and you've got to connect with them in a meaningful way so that they'll help you get there.
I love it. And, when you were mentioning a couple points popped in my mind. What's your story and what is your differentiator really? You need to really realize who your competitors are, because if you're offering the same type of thing, it doesn't matter what platform you're on or you're not going to get the engagement from your audience because you're so Me Too and vanilla. So I think that's a really big piece of it is in your quest to become known, you've got to have that, stake that claim of, sure, you might be that consultant in the IT world, let's say. I'll bet you there's many competitors. Well, what sets you apart? And what do you find when you're working with clients on helping them to kind of clarify that message that they have so that they are able to be distinguished between their competitors?
Well, there's a number of different exercises, but one that really seems to resonate with people and get them focused and clear is to kind of imagine yourself that you're speaking at your industry conference, whatever your industry is. And you're going, you've been invited to give this talk and you are so excited about what you have to say. And the people in the audience, they're hearing about you and, they're excited to hear what you say. Or if you can't make the leap, if you're afraid of public speaking, maybe being interviewed on a show like this. Imagine that 2 years from now. What are the questions that person is asking you? What do you want to bring to the world? And if you can kind of identify that and focus on that, there are probably some really good clues in there about what you want to be known for. And again, you made a good point about kind of doing some research. You can't just be the same as other people. You can't. Being different is better than being better. You just can't try to outdo. If you try to be the next Twitter, you're going to fail. We already have one Twitter, and it works just fine. You need to find something new. You need to find a niche for yourself, for your message, for your business.
And then once you found that, let's think about now some ways to get it out there, like the different platforms. And I kind of was thinking when you were describing that, it's like asking someone, hey, do you know what the best CRM system is? And, people start going, yeah, I use this and I use that. And then the response is, nope, it's the one you're going to use. Because it doesn't matter which bell or whistle that you're going to, buy if you're never going to use it. So get the most, the one that you resonate with the most. So to your point, which way of getting your content out there? Maybe you just don't like being in front of any camera or any people, but you can talk till the cows come home. So maybe podcasting is where it's at. So where do you advise people to find, once you found their voice and their message, and now you want to get it out there, what's the best way that they can select the best platform?
Well, there's a couple ways to look at it. And someone was just telling me the other day, one of the things they loved about my book is I've got an assessment of what platform best fits your personality type. And what made me think about this is someone told me one time, they said, well, the people who are succeeding on Snapchat are random and goofy. I thought, well, that could really explain why I don't like Snapchat, because no one said, oh, that Mark Schaefer, he is a random and goofy guy. I'm more of a thinker. I'm more of a cerebral person. I like, kind of like pacing things and thinking about things. And so writing fits for me. So I think one thing to think about is look at how I've laid it out in the book. And I think it might connect with people as far as, well, I'm kind of introverted. I wouldn't want to do that. But there are still lots of ways to connect with people. The other thing is, as you've mentioned, you kind of need to look at the field and look at the research. What are other people doing out there? Where are our customers? But I think the most important consideration at the end of the day is what is going to bring you joy? What are you going to have fun with? Because if you don't have fun with it, you're going to quit. And you can't quit. And if you're not having fun with it, your audience will know, and it's not going to work. But if you're having fun and you're excited and it's bringing you joy, that's going to come through, and that's contagious. So that to me is really the number one consideration, is just pick one and don't be concerned what everybody else is doing. My competitor has a podcast and a vlog and he's doing this and this. Don't worry about that. You've just got to build your own audience in your own way. So pick one thing, master it, do it well, build an audience there before thinking about diversifying.
Yeah, do you, because that's what's going to feel most comfortable and going to resonate best.
Right.
So once you figured out your message and your platform, now here's a great question. How do you make sure that you are doing all of these things consistently? Because getting known is not checking off a box. Okay, message created, check. Platform of choice, check. I did it once, check. And now, yay, I'm known. The worst thing in the world is to do that podcast once 2 years ago, or write that book once 4.5 years ago. So
right.
Let's talk about being consistent and being seen now that you get that boulder rolling down the hill.
Yeah, some guy complained to me the other day. He said blogging just doesn't work, and I looked at his website, and he hadn't blogged since like 2015.
Like, I guess it doesn't work.
And he had like 5 blog posts on there. I said, it was like, dude. So, when I interview these people for the book, the last question I asked them was if you could give them one piece of advice to be known in this noisy world, what would it be? And every one of them said some version of the word consistency, resilience, tenacity. People give up too soon. So, if I were just starting out, what I would shoot for is to create one piece of content a week. whether, whatever you want to do. It could be video, podcast, a blog, Facebook Live, or whatever. But really, plan it out. Find the thing that's going to bring you joy, and commit to doing it at least once a week to get started. And one of the things I have in the book is a little measurement system, because I spent a lot of time thinking about this. How do you know it's working? How do you know it's time to pivot or quit? And I think we need, because everybody says, oh, well, I want more customers and I want more money. And you know what? That's probably not going to happen right away. Mm-hmm. So you need to look at qualitative measures. Do you get asked to be on a podcast? Are you asked to contribute to a blog? Does someone call you up and just ask you a question because they've heard of you from the internet? Does someone in your community say, hey, can you help us with a problem? Or can you come speak to our community group? Those are all little signs that it's working. So you've got to have the discipline to not just create the content, but listen to the world. Listen to what the world is telling you. And as long as you're getting those signs, don't quit, because it's happening. Yeah. Basically, it kind of happens. It's like it doesn't happen. And then all of a sudden it happens. And for some people, that might take 2 years. It might take 3 years. But as long as you're seeing the signs of progress, keep going. And there's a lot of success stories. Since I wrote the book, a lot of people are coming to me saying, oh my gosh, I'm seeing success in my business, seeing success in my life. This has had such a powerful impact on me. But part of it is consistency and committing to doing it. And you also have to think about, is this the right time in my life? Maybe that might not be the right time for everybody. Maybe your time is next year. I'm not saying make excuses, but people have crises in their lives and they may not be able to commit to something like this. But once you start, you've got to keep on going for it to work.
Yep, I agree 1,000%. And now let's wrap up with this question before we say, how could people pick up a copy of your book? When you think about consistency, at some point, I'm sure someone would say, man, I did this, whatever it is. I wrote my blog post. I wrote all these blog posts on all of my market messaging, that the solutions I provide my customers. What else is there to say? So, some of the ways that I know that I find helpful is to think about, your customers' buying journey and what questions they have. So right to answer those questions as people are out there searching, so that now this piece of educational content is there, not in a sales piece, but just in a helpful piece. So what are some ways that you recommend for people to keep up with that consistency so that they can keep talking about their solutions without being redundant?
Well, I think, you bring up good points about just the idea of getting in the habit of answering people's questions. And you also have to have a discipline about being aware of all the ideas that are around you. So maybe you hear something on this show today, said, oh, that made me think about something, or I really agreed with that, or I disagreed with that. Capture that someplace. Capture it in WordPress. Capture it on a notebook. You don't have to write the whole thing, but just capture the idea. Maybe you read something in a magazine, you hear something on a podcast, you see something on TV. Just capture the idea or record the link of where you saw it so you can remember it later. The second discipline is creating the time to do this. If you're serious about it, creating content, engaging, it's got to be just as important to you as working out, or having a date, or setting up a meeting with a customer. It's got to be part of your life. You've got to assign quiet, uninterrupted time to create content for your audience. And I think, you should also be in a place where you're kind of relaxed. If you're thinking about other things and stressed out, if you have to, hit some kind of deadline, that doesn't lend itself to being very creative. But I think if you have the discipline to really record your ideas all week long, then when it's time to write, you've got a list of 10 ideas and you just pick the one that you want to do a video on or a podcast on. And as long as you stick to that, I find that it works. The only time I hit a real dry spot in my life is when I started to not record those ideas. And when you're sitting in front of a computer and you have to blog this week and you don't have those ideas in front of you, that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah. Because now it's work. And
now it's work.
Flowing. That's an excellent point. Super. Well, Mark, thanks so much for your time. It's excellent getting to know you and talking about some of these tips. What's the best way that people can reach out not only to you, but also pick up a copy of your book, Known, we're talking about, but also I'm sure you have many others.
Yeah, I've written 6 books on a variety of topics on Twitter, influence marketing, blogging, social media, content marketing. And my new book is called Known. You can find everything about me at businessesgrow.com. You can find my blog, my podcast, my books, and a lot of other cool resources for entrepreneurs of any kind of business, really.
Awesome. Hey, Mark, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Art of Authority podcast. Are you interested in building your authority positioning as the #1 strategy to grow your business, brand, and influence? Book your authority audit today. This 7-point audit of your current authority position will uncover opportunities and show you how to be seen as a leading expert and authority your industry looks to for advice. Visit www.authoritypositioningcoach.com.